Hey guys, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about training stress here and when to schedule a proper recovery week. But the presentation really is 15 slides long, and I really uh, can't upload an hour-long uh, presentation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly go through every slide. You can take a look at them at your convenience, and then I'll summarize everything on the last two slides. So first slide is identifying symptoms of fatigue and executing a appropriate course of action. So when is enough enough? And I know this is a problem a lot of us deal with and determine well whether I should push forward, no pain, no gain, or whether it is actually, time to take a little break to make further gains. And I know, a lot of us think that, pushing forward is the solution, especially when they encounter short-term gains in performance from taking a few days off, that they think they just simply can't take a few days off, or if they do, it's going to set them back quite a bit, and it's actually quite the contrary. So let me roll through each one of these slides, and really quickly, I'll get to the last two and talk a little bit about those. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me, and I'll answer them. Okay, so the second slide here, I just kind of go over the training principles, which are very important in terms of determining a proper training program if you want to make gains and limit losses. Okay. So here I want to get in. I talk about fitness fatigue theory, and that these two uh, principles are interrelated, and that as you train, fitness goes up, but so does fatigue. And I threw in some things like CTA, ATL, and TSP for those of you who use WKO and want to kind of understand that a little bit more. Although fitness fatigue theory predates CTL, ATL, TSP, all of that stuff by many, 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 many years. So CTL, ATL, TSP was modeled after the fitness fatigue theory. So in this slide, I go into a little bit more about the relationship, what happens. Um, this one too. All right. Let's roll up here. And of course, you can pause the video anytime if you want to read through these. Then I get into the actual adaptations to training, which is how we get fitter, and that there are shorter term gains and also longer term gains. And so fitness is not, does not just have one factor. It's multifactorial. All right, and that some things take a long time to cultivate, and some things happen relatively quickly, and that goes, with both endurance and strength training. Some things you notice really quick gains, and then some gains take longer to cultivate. All right. So rolling through here, I get into a slide here about common signs and symptoms of fatigue, so you can identify them yourself. The ones I have here in question marks are really up for debate right now, and whether these are actually signs of fatigue. Of course, we can also, say that increased resting heart rate is also the effect of not getting enough sleep. So, not just training. So, some things here to think about. And then the problems associated, with the acutely and chronic, with regards to having residual fatigue, which most of us carry through the entire race season. And then I get into kind of the basis of how our bodies respond to stress and adapt and get fitter, if you will, if we're talking about training. But how our bodies adapt to stress through what's called supercompensation brings us to a level of where, as organisms, we can resist that stress better, and that, as we know it, in terms of training and exercise performance, is called fitness. Okay, Selye was the one that developed this called the general adaptation syndrome. You may have seen that type of a graph before. Then I kind of start off with the first type of training, which is normal training progression, which is kind of how we allow pretty much complete recovery before we do another training session, and then for each time. And this is a way you can make gains, no doubt about it, right? But a lot of us, especially when we get up to higher levels of fitness, require some form of overreaching. And there's two different types of overreaching. Um, One in which results in no fitness gains, and then those that, if we give enough rest, result in fitness gains. So you can take a look at this graph, okay? But yeah, as you can see here, right, we train again, we train again, we train again, right? And so we never kind of get back up to this baseline by the time we train again. So, you guys know as endurance athletes, we do a lot of blocks, right? 2-day blocks, 3-day blocks, or even training camps, right? Where we train 7 days in a row. All right, so that's a form of what's called overreaching. But functional overreaching is when we allow our bodies to adapt and actually get fitter, right? And so when we test ourselves again, we're actually at a higher level when we allow enough rest, right? And then when we get to non-functional overreaching, so that's where we do not have any kind of a performance gains. So what's called stagnation or even a decrease in performance, and obviously what's called overtraining system if we continue to pump out those training sessions without adequate rest, right? So we really want to be, with regards to training, in this area, acute fatigue and functional overreaching. Okay, and when you get into this area, it's time to take a little break. So moving on to the 14th slide here, these last two slides I'll talk about when to schedule a recovery week. Well, first thing, you got to listen to your body and mind. WKO is nice and dandy, but it's a modeling program and not everyone's the same. All right, so you really need to listen to your body and mind, all right? And the best criteria is whether your fitness and performance is impaired. So like after you take a day of recovery or 2 days of recovery, how is your performance, right? And then if your performance is affected, that's not the bottom line. You've got to think about the other factors. Are you sick? So is it inadequate recovery related, sleep quality, quantity, dramatic increase in training load, or have you just ramped things up really quickly? You really need more rest. You have any problems with nutritional deficiencies, right? Are you eating enough carbohydrates, eating enough protein? Is there an environmental cause, outside stressors? So you really have to look at all these things and say, hey, is it just inadequate recovery, right? Is it sickness? Or am I starting to non-functionally overreach, right? So that whether we stagnate or we actually have a deficit in performance. So what I like to do is to take 2 to 3 rest days. So 2 to 3 rest days is not going to cause any reduction in fitness, all right? But it might allow our bodies to respond and supercompensate and actually get fitter. If that doesn't occur and you can rule out these factors, it might be time to take a recovery week, which is traditionally a week long, okay? So what is the outcome of a proper recovery week? Reduced but not zero training stress. So we're not sitting on our asses for an entire week. The goal is to reduce fatigue, maintain fitness, and increase performance and preparedness through a reduction of fatigue, okay? So, but remember, in season, we were reducing fatigue, which allows us to continue to train, but we are not getting to zero fatigue, right? If that happens, you will lose fitness, I guarantee it. So the only time we try to reduce our fatigue to near zero levels, it probably doesn't get quite to zero, but we're gonna reduce it dramatically, and there's gonna be a subsequent loss of fitness is during the transition period, which is the early off season, right? So now we have plenty of time to get our fitness back, but now we're giving our body plenty of time to fully rest and regenerate to start over again. And hopefully, you have a new baseline, right, when you start again. So what's the outcome of a proper recovery week? Limited, if any, acute fitness loss. The level of fitness fatigue pre-recovery week will determine any acute fitness loss. All right, so sometimes you will lose a little bit of fitness, but you can get that back relatively quickly. So if your training block, let's say, is 3 to 6 weeks, you should be able to get that back within a half week to a week, right? If it's planned out correctly. So if any loss, it's quickly reversible within a week with lower fatigue levels than before. And that's what allows you to continue to train and do another block without getting fatigued. All right, so the difference between a taper week and a recovery week is that a recovery week is really designed to reduce fitness levels more than a taper week. A taper week is designed to reduce fatigue, yes, but maintain, if not increase fitness, right? And increase performance, right? So how is that done? That's done through high intensity and reduced volume. So rather than a recovery week, you just reduce the volume dramatically in an exponential way, all right? Taper week will not drop fatigue as low as recovery week. So that's why you don't do just tapers in between blocks, right? Because you'll get into the next block, and after 2 weeks, you're going to be fatigued again. So it doesn't drop your fatigue levels as low. Okay, so hopefully this helps you out. If you have any questions rolling through any of these slides, again, just stop and pause them and take a look. Please let me know, and I will answer them. All right, take care.